And fall is on its way, and that means for many gardeners, it's time to pick that last bit of produce. Now, oftentimes that means having a lot of food to eat fast, but experts at the UNL Extension Office say you do have another option that's easier than you think. Check it out.
There are three things you can do with all this produce. One of them is you can dehydrate it. So I have a lot of herbs, they're starting to go very quickly, so what are you going to do? You dehydrate it. But if you have, like in the fall, a lot of apples, you can dehydrate apples, you can dehydrate vegetables, lots of things you can do with dehydrating. Pretty quick, pretty simple, put them in your oven, they dry. Another thing you can do, this is with some extra fruit, you can can it. You can actually use a hot water bath and you can can it. Very simple.
So that's jelly right there.
That's jelly.
Okay.
And then I had I had way too much zucchini this year, so I made some freezer zucchini jam. And it can go in the same canning jars you have. It could go in a zipper bag. It could go in a plastic container. You don't have to use a jar. I just happen to have some jars left. And this goes right in the freezer. No big deal.
So for people who have never done this, it's kind of intimidating to see this. Is there a good starter canning project?
There is. I think that like freezer jam, very simple, because all you do is you dump some things together and you put it in the freezer. That's it.
That's it.
It takes 2 minutes, and people will think you're Martha Stewart. So you know.
Well, I like the sound of that.
It's pretty simple.
So we're talking about, it's fun to can things, but you also need to follow all of the rules because there are some risks if you don't do it right.
There are. If you're canning green beans or low acid foods and you're not canning them in a pressure canner, botulism can grow. If you're just what they call open kettling it, where you stick things in a jar and turn them upside down, things aren't going to seal, and there's a potential for botulism and all different sorts of things.
So how long did it take for you to make this jam?
I made a dozen jars in less than 10 minutes.
And what's the shelf life for that?
This can stay in your freezer for a year and a half.
Holy smokes.
So it works pretty well. And the canned foods, we recommend you use them up within a year.
Gotcha.
And dehydrated will last, for at least a year. So.
Wow. What is the biggest mistake you see people make when they're trying to preserve produce?
The biggest thing is that people are using grandma's recipe. So things have changed over the last even 5 years. I'm using grandma's tomato recipe. Well, tomatoes have changed. There's not as much acid. You really need to follow a recipe that has been tested in a lab, like with Ball Canning or the USDA canning guidelines, and then the recipe should be safe.
And if you're new to canning, Cindy says you may want to check out some recipes on the USDA's website or call the UNL Extension Office and ask for the Foods Department. Now that number is 402-444-7804.